Welcome, everyone. I hope you're well. I'm not sure which time zone you're joining us from, but hopefully you're having a good day so far. So again, just a quick introduction. This is part of our Ask the CISO series that we do from time to time to help and support our next generation of talent. And today we have the privilege of Aurora, who's a very good friend, industry colleague, and a very senior leader, to share her wisdom as well, joining me. I want to kind of get a few things out of the way very clearly in terms of disclaimers. So, what we are talking about here today, these are our personal views based on our life experiences, our own journey in the industry. We're not sharing any organizational views. And the purpose of this is to help and support you. So, there are two things I would like you to do is there is a reaction button at the bottom. I would like you to kind of use that to give us the feedback loop because we can't see you. So it's always very difficult to understand what we are saying is working. You are able to hear us and whether that's connecting. So here you go, perfect. And if you like something, just tell us. There's a Q&A functionality and also chat. So you can, if you feel like sharing anything, you can put in the chat or you can use the Q&A functionality if you would like to ask any question anonymously. But you don't need to be shy. What I will do is I will read out the questions because we're going to publish the recording so people who are hearing this at a later stage can understand the question as well. Without further ado, I think it will be good for just to give you a quick round of introduction of yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jit, for having me. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Aurora Smith, Aurora Cheney, which is my maiden name. I am currently the Director of Cybersecurity Strategy and Growth with BT. And I don't come from a CISO background. I actually come from a commercial cybersecurity background. So I work with businesses to help them protect their business through security controls and managed security services. But separate to that, as part of my sort of volunteering, I work very closely with mentoring both women who are returning to work from maternity leave, but also graduates, most notably working with some of the graduates from my MBA, helping them get ready for their first jobs.
Perfect. Thank you. And for people who might not know me, I'm Jitender Arora. I'm the Global Deputy CISO and also NSC CISO at Deloitte. I have been working in the industry for more than 25 years in different facets, but still technology is at heart. You know, you eventually become leader, so you start stepping away from technology, but still, I'm still a technologist at heart, and it still excites me. We're gonna go through this topic. So last time we had a workshop around how to write an impactful CV because we realized after speaking to a number of you that there was still not clarity in terms of what a good CV looks like. So we had another colleague, an industry colleague of mine joining us. So we talked about it, that video is on YouTube channel. So you can go and refer to that. But once you have a good CV, what are you going to do with that CV? So you can go to the websites and you can apply for the jobs. We all know the problem that happens, sometimes you get rejections, but how you can have a different strategy towards making the connections in the industry, finding the people who can help you, support you, open up the doors for you. And this is what we're going to talk about, the power of network. We have got, when I was starting my career, there was no, these platforms didn't exist. So I remember having a backpack with a printed CV, going door to doors. There was a guard sitting outside who will not allow us to go inside. And there's a big box says CV. So you put your CV in that box and then you wait for that phone call. And then you wait, and then you wait, which was a very long wait at times. So, but today, I think we have got a power of network which is available and technology has made it easier. So we're going to talk about some of these things and some of the experiences Aurora has because she has got a very interesting perspective on this to share as well. So, Aurora, now in terms of you come from a commercial background, network is a very strong part of everything that you do, making connections, opening the doors, and everything else. So, if you had to kind of give the advice to people, what are the key networking strategies for students or early entrants or people who are trying to get into cybersecurity? So, how can they go about leveraging the network?
Absolutely. So one of my most favorite mentors of all time took me out for a coffee when I became a director and said, now, the only way you're going to go anywhere is if you have a strong network. So it is all about who you know. And it's not necessarily around networking in regards to making sure that people know you're looking for a role. There's a number, you need to take a couple steps back. So the first of all, I think what you need to do is engage actively. So make sure that you're participating in discussions, asking questions, sharing insight when you have it. And it doesn't have to be specifically around cybersecurity. You know, when you're having a conversation, just show your ideas. This really goes quite far. The other one is diversify your methods. So I think I was chatting with Jit just before this session around, there's a number of ways to network. You don't need to do them all. Just make sure that you choose the ones you're most comfortable with and that allow you to shine. So make sure you're always your authentic self. Creating a network is not about how many people you know. It's about how many people you have an authentic connection with, and that can last through your entire career. And the last one is making sure that you stay informed. So most importantly in cybersecurity, right in this moment, you need to be aware of the news, what's happening. Things are moving very rapidly. So keep in touch with blogs, podcasts, follow people who you are inspired by, and stay informed.
Yeah. And I think I just want to add one perspective because there's a concept of introvert, extrovert, right? So for some people, networking comes very, very easy. I have a social anxiety about going to big events. And sometimes when I go and then there's so many people, I kind of feel lost and I kind of struggle. And then I will try to find one or two familiar faces and I kind of latch onto them. So I still have, and I remember I started my career and came to UK for the first time. I used to sit in my corner and do the job. Going to events and everything else was difficult. So I think that's what Aurora is talking about. You do not have to do what everybody else is doing. Depending on your preferences, you can actually, instead of, if you want to go to a conference or you want to use LinkedIn or you want to use one-to-one Teams chat, you can find what works for you. And instead of being very uncomfortable, because when you're uncomfortable, you're not being true to yourself. You can't really represent yourself well. So keep that in mind. But key point here, which you're touching upon, is the genuine connection. Be curious, be very humble, be very clear about the purpose and everything else. Because it's if you go to somebody and say, I'm looking for a job, right? That's not the best way to kind of connect with people. And since cut copy paste messages, they do not work well. So next thing, which is about social media platforms, right? So I know there are downsides of social media. We talk about it as well, but at the same time, some of these platforms have created an opportunity to connect with somebody who you would otherwise not get a chance to meet because you're studying in Birmingham or you're studying in Manchester, but somebody's in London. It's very difficult for you to kind of make a train trip and then come down and meet people. But can you just give us an idea about how to effectively leverage these platforms for networking with the people and maybe also the hiring managers?
Absolutely. So, I mean, we'll start with LinkedIn because it is an exceptionally important tool that is being used more and more by recruiters to search for and connect with candidates. But there are great things that you can be doing yourself. So one is work to optimize your LinkedIn profile. And there are a lot of trainings around this, possibly a topic for a future date around how you optimize that profile and make sure that you join relevant groups. If you're interested in working for a company, follow them. These are things that you must do. And then look to engage in industry discussions. So a way an executive coach explained it to me is, you could simply like something. That does demonstrate activity on LinkedIn. So if you're comfortable only with that, then like something. But if you've got a really compelling comment, that will even go farther, right? And then using whatever content you're taking on board to generate new ideas, either through commentary or even blogs, that's taking it one step farther, right? By doing that, you become more, you come up on the profiles more often so people can see you and read you. And then you can connect with hiring managers. And don't be afraid to do that. So I've done that before, and you get varying levels of success. So you may not hear back, but they will remember you wrote to them. So don't feel worried or concerned there. There are a lot of other things you can be doing with LinkedIn. It's quite a powerful platform, and it's evolving every day. But for some of you who might feel more comfortable with older versions of social media platforms, there are things you can do there as well. So Facebook, although it's not seen as traditionally a professional platform, it actually does allow small businesses and startups to sort of post job openings. So keep an eye out for company pages related to your field. The second one is Twitter. It's becoming less and less popular, but still widely used. And make sure that you stay informed by connecting with decision makers and following people that you admire. Same with Instagram. It's more visual, but actually you can use Instagram to your own benefit. So this is sort of showcasing your professional side, following companies, commenting on their posts, using their hashtags. Okay. In this instance, authenticity matters. So don't polish yourself up so that you feel uncomfortable. Like Instagram is photographic and it needs to show who you are. Likewise, YouTube. So people create and content on YouTube. So follow those people you admire and maybe consider doing some of your own content. If you have career aspirations to be a portfolio sort of employee, then you'll want to be using YouTube and other social advocacy tools for your own benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there was one that I recently discovered, Jit, for those people who are very serious about portfolio career, and that's called Hootsuite, which allows you to kind of pull together all of your social media platforms and schedule things around blogs and content creation. It also has something called Owly Writer, which helps you create new and interesting content. So those people who are very interested in establishing themselves as self-employed, or for those career people who are looking to advance, this might be a good tool for you to use.
Yeah. And I think what Aurora is kind of touching upon is in the world that we live in, hybrid, where we are not always sitting. If you look at this session, Aurora is sitting in a very different part, whereas I'm sitting in a very different part. We're having this conversation. Your online profile has significant value, but we sometimes don't pay attention to it. So it's almost like imagine a scenario when you're going for an interview in a very big organization, you will go extra mile to make sure that you have got a haircut done before, you're looking well, you're dressing well, and then you're preparing for that. But what has happened is when we are going in this living in the digital world, we're not putting that much of emphasis on the digital avatar that you have, which is basically representing you in this wider digital world. So what Arora is kind of talking about is, your LinkedIn profile. It's a very, very important thing that your profile is explaining who you are, what matters to you, what drives you, what motivates you. So if I am seeing a request coming from you, I'm going to go to read your profile to really understand who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And if there are two profiles I'm looking at, somebody who has sent me a request and the profile actually stands out, I can understand that it's almost like your profile is talking to me, just like your CV is talking to me. And within that, we're always talking about the activities, right? So that's the interesting thing about the activities, because when you are clicking, you're commenting, you're writing something. So LinkedIn has an algorithm in the backend, which is looking at a lot of stuff and seeing how active that profile is. And then that algorithm decides where you're going to appear in the feed. So not saying it, you have to do it forcefully, but you should consider doing it in a very authentic way, in a way which explains and following the people. There's so much of wisdom I get. So example, I'll give you Simon Sinek is one of my favorite author and some of the favorite inspirational speaker. And I'm always looking out for content he's posting. So I have got subscriptions on and making sure that I'm able to see the wisdom that he's providing, because that gives me a lot of time food for thought. So please do that. It's a very, very important part of your digital presence in the world that we're living in.
I also did, just before you carry on, I think that also brought up one thing in my mind, which is make sure that on all of your social accounts that you are actually being ethical and responsible,
Yes.
even if it's not in a professional sense, right? So I have had instances as a director where an employee was not doing that, and a customer brought it up, right? So this was on his Facebook page. So you just need to be aware that anything that you can SEO, search engine optimize, will be available to recruitment agents and hiring managers. And you can bet when I receive a CV, I go and search for that person. I want to make sure their LinkedIn lines with their CV. I would like to see what their public persona is. So please don't underestimate that in terms of your private life as well.
I think it's a very important point, because a lot of time I say it's not just the technical skills we hire for. We look for the values of the individuals, the behaviors of the individuals, to make sure they are going to be an important and integral part of our team. Because I think team is like a family, and you want to make sure that you are getting the right person who's the right fit for this organization and the team. So it's a very important point, which is about the values and behaviors that you show. So perfect. So and everybody okay? I need some signs to say you're still, we're audible, you're listening, it's all going well. Okay, cool. All right. What are the do's and don'ts? It's a very interesting point. I will give you some of the things, because I get approached by so many people, right? So many people. So what are the do's and don'ts when reaching out to those hiring managers or industry professionals for networking purposes?
My perspective, or would you like to start? Okay.
Yeah. I will give my perspective in the end.
Okay. So do use diverse methods of networking. Make sure that you are doing the ones that you're most comfortable with because you will be authentic. Make sure that when you reach out, well, actually, before I do that, make sure that you encourage referrals and introductions. So if you know somebody who knows your hiring manager, start there. Introductions really do help. And even when you're not looking for jobs, continuing to grow your network, you should definitely be looking for those introductions. Okay? Make sure
I
that
just
you're
want to add one thing. I just want to add thing. Actually, networking needs to happen when you're not looking for a job.
correct. That is so true, actually. And because it's about building genuine relationships, this is a lifelong friendship that you're hoping to build, right? And I definitely have quite a few people I've known since the moment I started working. Make sure that you understand the relevant skills for roles that you want, and make sure that you highlight those. Now, when you're talking about networking, you're not going to go straight to your relevant skills, but being able to understand what skills align with your ambitious role means that if the conversation does move into that, you are prepared. Okay. Now, the key thing that I wanted to say was you always need to be actively listening. It's not about what you can tell someone. And I'll share a few examples of that later. It's about actually having genuine interest in what other people have to say. So I tell you what, Jit and I, we network all the time. And I think the way that we connected really was around conversations around well-being for CISOs. It wasn't about, any job exchanges or I'm your customer, you're my client. It was literally just around opening up and talking around how stressful cybersecurity industry can be and how we need to be looking after each other. That was how I think we started talking.
Genuine connection, right?
Yeah. And then make sure you show enthusiasm for your work. So share insights about yourself, be passionate about what you do. If you're not passionate about what you do, I would consider starting to look at options that you will feel passionate about. I think we work for so long in our lives, we need to make sure we enjoy it. So those are my do's. From a don't wait for hiring managers to start the conversation. If you're very serious about working for that organization, show it, put your foot forward, take the initiative to introduce yourself. Don't go straight to the hard sell. So in my earlier career, I also had anxiety around networking. And I remember at one particular point, a friend said, make sure you seek out Claudia. She's hiring. Went straight up to Claudia. I was like, hi, I'm Aurora. Somebody told me I should speak to you. I know you're hiring. And she looked at me and she said, I'm always hiring.
Yeah.
It was not the best first impression. And I think, we have since created a rapport. I did not end up working for Claudia, but we have created a networking opportunity there. Yeah. Don't forget to note taking important details down. So if somebody takes the time to talk to you about something important, make sure that you remember, specifically if you're looking to move into a role that might be open. So you reach out to hiring manager when there is a role being advertised. If they tell you something, take that into the interview. You must, because otherwise they might feel frustration. And the last one really is don't be afraid of rejection. Again, I know I've said that a number of times, but it is about creating the right connections with the right people.
Yeah, perfect. So I think one thing I'll say in terms of do's, right? I kind of made the argument that do not start networking when you're looking for a job, when you're desperate for a job. The power of network actually comes in when you need to pull those levers when you need it. But the lot of hard work and effort has to happen beforehand, where you are going to say, I want to build a connection. And how do you know you want to build a connection? I don't know, hinting that point, which is, if you want to be a cybersecurity operations analyst, or you want to become one of the best SOC expert, then find out who are the leaders in the industry who have got that experience everywhere. And don't just go for the top, right? People who are in your position 2 years ago, they started their career, they're the analyst, and also somebody who's running the SOC. Learn about them, find those, and then that's where the effort comes in. I always say laziness does not give you result. Focused effort gives you results. And what that means is you have now these platforms are available. You have to go down the path of opening up not just what LinkedIn shows the first result, looking at their profile, see what drives them. Does that profile tell you that this kind of a person I would like to connect with, and based on what they have been posting and everything else? So do a bit of an effort and research to actually go and understand that. And once you do that, then start building those connections in the pipeline. And again, where I see very laziness is somebody clicks on saying, I would like to connect with you, I'm generally okay. I accept request, that's fine. But then as soon as I accept the request, within 5 minutes, I will see a message coming out with a generic message. I can see it. It's a copy paste, a very generic message which is coming out with the CV attached. Can you help me find the job? Or I'm looking for a job. Can you help me? Now, I generally help everybody, but at the same time, we live in a digital world. I do not know you. You're saying you are this person. How do I know you are that person? I have no connection with you. And being a CISO, how can I refer your CV for a role where this person, and you may not be that person who you say you are? There might be some LinkedIn platform also has been used for a lot of social engineering attacks. So it could be one of those things. So how can I refer you? How can I champion, sponsor, being your cheerleader, open the doors for you if I don't know you? So Arora was talking about, how do you represent yourself? So every email that you write, exhibit skills that you have. If you're going to write a very well crafted, tailor made message to me, when you have taken the time to understand what I'm passionate about, what connects with me, what I value, where my interests are, then what that means is, oh, you have gone extra mile to really understand me, and then you are trying to make a genuine connection. And that basically allows that relationship to grow. It's almost like a seed, right? You put a seed, then you start putting, start giving water, food, and everything else, and then it flourishes into a big tree. But that's what relationships are about. Otherwise, you are doing basically what you're asking for is a transaction. I call it a transactional relationship. So you connect with the LinkedIn, and immediately I want to sell you something or I want a job. And that's a transaction. That's not a relationship. And power of network is in relationship. And also, do not go down the route of this boilerplate thing, cut, copy, paste. Take a moment to write a well crafted note, exactly the way you would like to receive it. Because it comes back to my laziness point, because it's easier. Just cut, copy, paste, you can start sending, and then you think, oh, I got 100 rejections, but you're not able to connect with people. So it's a very important point about how do you represent yourself in digital world, is every action that you do is the articulation of your own representation and building your own brand. Okay. So thanks, Aurora. This was interesting. I think we talked about, we kind of touch upon this, but how can an individual makes a lasting impression when networking with potential employers, whether it's in cyber or technology? But we have sometimes when you meet someone in the event or in the train or somewhere, but somebody just say, that was nice. You feel like I like that connection. And if somebody asks you for your LinkedIn profile details, you don't mind sharing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me what that makes, what that feels for you.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose maybe I can give an example of sort of the levels of engagement that I've received recently at a networking event. So recently I went to a networking event for the Oxford MBA graduates, and I went in knowing that I went in because I wanted to network with a number of the alum, but I knew we were all going to support the graduates. And a number of people spoke to me, and it came in a number of guises. So I'm just going to start with what was the least effective all the way down to the most effective, if that helps. And it sort of brings it a little bit to life in terms of something tangible for the people listening. So nobody really knew who I was when I arrived, obviously, and the titles of our roles were in very small print. So I was able to move around the room quite a lot in the evening without necessarily everybody understanding who I was until the very end. So at the very end, I announced to the organizers that I was going, and they said, hold on, we know we want graduates to come and speak to you. So we're starting with the least effective. At that point, I had a group of graduates come around me. I think there were about 8 of us. We all sat down at a round table, and I had like a fire and respond kind of conversation where people were saying, I want to be in strategy. I want to work for a telco or a large organization. They were asking me lots of questions about my organization and about my role. And it was beneficial for them, right? So I was mentoring at that point. I was helping them understand my career goal, how I reached my path, how I reached my current role, and answering a lot of questions for them. At the end of it, I did not remember any of them, Jit. Like, honestly, there were 8 of them. It was lovely to chat with them. I really appreciated sharing my view with them, but I don't remember them. Okay. Following that, two people stayed behind and they shared their experiences with me. It was almost like a CV readout. They're like, here's what I've done. can I get a job? It was very interesting for me because I love people's perspectives. I love learning about people, but it
Yeah.
wasn't as engaging. And although I remember them, I didn't really know what to do with that information. It was transactional, as you said, right?
Yeah.
Then throughout the course of the night, perhaps in the earlier bits when people didn't know who I was able to have very individual conversations with people who asked about me, asked what I did, shared information, like really interesting information. It was a one-to-one dialogue where we talked about what it was like to be in business, what it was like to be in cyber. I remember these people very well, right? And I've connected with them on LinkedIn. But the last ones really were around those individual conversations around not only understanding somebody's culture and background and connecting on a personal level, but then sharing ideas around technology in the market, raising issues, debating potential solutions. They were organic, insightful, compelling conversations. And it made me want to speak to these individuals later. So I sought them out, I connected with them, and I gave them warm handovers to hiring managers. And we have now, discussed on LinkedIn. So it sort of goes from the lightest touch, transactional, really purposeful, I need to learn about the industry, all the way down to creating authentic relationships. And I can tell you which ones I appreciate the most, right? It's those connections there.
Yeah.
I should also state for those who do have anxiety in terms of networking face to face, the one-to-one conversations are always lovely because people will give you time. And then some people reached out to me following the event who I didn't speak to at the event, but they wrote to me something that was important or what they appreciated about contributions in the evening. And that helped as well.
Yeah. And I think this comes back to being authentic. You kind of nicely touched upon, because I had an experience with someone. I was giving a lecture at Warwick University, and then one student afterwards reached out to me on a note, and then again, a very genuine, authentic note to say, it was great to, have you listen to you. I really enjoyed, specific things I talked about, giving examples. Again, got my interest and curiosity, and then said, I know you were surrounded by so many students, and I'm kind of introvert. I didn't feel like disturbing you. I didn't feel like I had the courage to come up to you and speak to you, but I really wanted to speak to you. So will that be okay if I can find some time to have a chat with you? The person was very genuine, very honest to say, actually, I had anxiety. I just could not, because you were surrounded by so many people. I just couldn't, I didn't feel I can come into the conversation. And I was very shy about it. And I was like, okay. And we had a conversation. To your point, I really enjoyed the conversation, that one-to-one conversation that we had over the phone. And we learned so much about each other. And similarly, one person I remember was when I was leaving, said, I know you are very busy. I was trying to get to speak to you, but is it okay if I walk with you up to the car, if you're going to the car? And then just a few minutes if I can. So the person was very respectful towards my time, didn't want to hold me, but said, if you're walking towards the car, is it okay if I walk with you and we can just have a chat, because I would like to take your advice on something. And then kind of I help, I provide the advice. And then I ended up being almost like a mentor for that person for a while. So these are it's all about, comes down to genuine, authentic conversations that we do. So lasting impressions for me also is about, you know, it's whenever somebody is speaking from heart, you can see it. When somebody is, whenever I go to the university, sometimes students are presenting case studies to me, I can filter out. I can see these students have done so much of hard work, preparation. Comes back to my point, because again, I will say it again and again. For me, there's a laziness and there's a hard work. So some people who have actually gone extra mile, put in effort, they shine very, very quickly. They have gone extra mile. And
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate whenever somebody goes extra mile. So I'm gonna give you another trick, right? So when I was coming to UK, um, I was I had a language barrier. I couldn't speak English properly. It was very difficult. So a lot of time I was very quiet because I'm just trying to follow the conversation. And by the time I'm able to say something, that the train has kind of already left. So it was a lot of hard work to kind of get my head into that space. But what I did was, when I started speaking to some people, I realized, whenever somebody asked me what you do, I used to fumble. I didn't have a very good answer. And I realized I give different answer at different times. So depending on where my headspace is. And that's where I came up with this concept of elevator pitch that you hear about it. But I created 5 or 6 different versions depending on the level of person I'm talking to. I rehearsed in the mirror, looking at myself to say, if I only get 2 or 3 minutes, how I'm going to do it. So eventually I became very good at it. So if somebody asks me a question, what do I do? I'm able to somebody might say, oh, that was great. Not people realizing there's a lot of hard work has gone behind the scenes, me practicing in front of the mirror to say, and there are different versions. So think about your elevator pitch. Think about what defines you, and then have some versions and practice them, rehearse them, so they come very intuitively to you at the time when you will have no chance to prepare for it. So I think we're asking a lot of questions. I'm just asking, but I haven't. I would like to encourage if you have any questions in the top of your mind. I'm sure some of you may have something. So this is a chance for you to use the Q&A and ask any questions that you may want to ask us. So I'm going to keep going in the interest of time, and please put in your questions, and I will start taking those questions as soon as they start coming in. So um, you go to a networking event, right? As you said, that some people were, so you kind of explain how to be in the networking event. So now those students or those people have met you at the networking events. What's the right way to follow up after the networking events?
Absolutely. So absolutely send a thank you email. This is your door opener, right? So anybody you've spoken to, even if you fumbled like I did with Claudia, I could just be like, oh, excuse me for my Bridget Jones moment. I just wanted to tell you, I really appreciated your conversation on the panel or whatever, right? So, even if it didn't go exactly right, your opportunity to send a thank you or a follow-up is really where you can course correct or bolster the conversation in terms of what you did. So express gratitude for their time, recap some points that you found compelling in the conversation. And then if you can, or if you've agreed actions, make sure you summarize them there. Or suggest the next step. So, you can suggest a follow-up call or a coffee meeting. You can ask for, the opportunity to share information like a blog or an article that you read that could be really compelling for them, right? Make sure you connect on LinkedIn. Let's face it, this is the professional platform that everybody is using more and more.
And send a good message, please, on the LinkedIn invite, please.
Yeah, always
I would like
personalize it. So, this is really where you must personalize it. So express interest in staying connected. And then, as I said, share your content and see if you can follow up. Now, you're not going to follow up the next week or the next day. It might be quarterly, it might be semi-annually. And there's one trick that I want to let you know about. You may never get that coffee meeting, but if you're connected and you're following the person, you can continuously re-engage through their LinkedIn updates. So if you feel like because you don't want to be like, oh, I'm looking for a job now. Instead, you can see a compelling update. So I really love what you do, your comments around well-being for men this week. It's Mental Health Awareness Week. This was fantastic, and I'm so compelled by your interest in this area, right? So you can either do that on a personal message, or you can comment directly on the postings. Now, commenting on the postings just reminds people you're there, but writing separately to say, I really loved your post, or I found this really interesting in the article you wrote, will be more personable, right?
A lot of people don't realize the importance of that. You will see a content, you like it, but you don't engage with it.
Yes.
I think a lot of people don't realize this. They're missing something. There's something very powerful about it, because there's a lot of algorithm happening, but also people are seeing those comments and they start realizing there's a pattern emerging here. So very, very relevant point. Very
Yeah,
relevant.
absolutely. And some people find it hard or feel inauthentic by just reaching out with no purpose,
Mm.
right? But by tracking somebody on LinkedIn, even if it's a very small comment, it allows you to open that door a bit less contrived, right? It's a bit more genuine. Yeah.
Correct. So we have few questions coming in. So I'm going to ask that question. I'm going to read that question to make sure that people who are listening to the recording, they have the context. The first one says, thanks for the session and great insights you provided. The power of effective networking is very important. I fully agree with the points and example you raised. For context, now this person is a career changer and transitioning into cybersecurity. So that's a very interesting point, because it's a very strange, there's one thing is you're a student versus you have got experience in career changer. I'll be honest, I'm a little anxious about the journey ahead. Fully understandable. What other key advice can you share for me as someone with the new to the sector, academically come from a non-technical background? I have approximately 15 years of professional experience in banking and supply chain sector. I would love to leverage my previous skills into my journey into cyber. I think I would really encourage you to go and see the video of the CV workshop, which we did. we talked about some of this because a lot of time we underestimate and we do not give appreciation to the skills that we have gathered over the 15 years. Now you think about 15 years, I can imagine you will have problem solving skills, you will have analytical skills, you will have communication skills, stakeholder management, handling some difficult conversation. There's so many, I don't call them soft skills because I think that's undermining the essential business skills you have
Power
gathered,
skills, they're power skills.
power skills, your life skills you have gathered. So, and technology and technical skills can be taught. Attitude, behaviors, values, mindset can't be taught. So I think I would really encourage you to kind of look at that CV workshop because we talked about how can you demonstrate some of those skills, which are very important skills. They're transferable skills to bring that into cyber domain. But what I would also encourage you is if you are looking at cybersecurity sector, I come back to the point, going extra mile. So I would really appreciate if you can showcase to me that you have got that experience, but why you are passionate about. Your first paragraph talks about why you are interested in cyber and what you have done to understand and learn more about it. For example, doing some trainings which are freely available, doing an entry level certification, because what that tells me is that you have got an entry level understanding and you understand the terminology, you understand the domain, and you have gone extra mile to show that curiosity and next step in that. But I think it's I understand the challenge, but this is where the power of networking comes in. There's so many people who have joined in my team where they come from IT support background. Somebody came from working. She was a primary school teacher now working with us. There was somebody sound engineer. There's so many examples we have, but building that connections where people can get to know you, they know what you have to offer, what skills you're bringing, and then effectively in deciding to invest in you. So,
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't summarize that any better, really. I had put down views around networking for career changes and career advancers
mm,
as advice. Um,
mm,
Definitely agree completely with what you've said, Jit. The other thing I want to let you know is that actually in this industry, a number of us did not come from a formal cybersecurity background. So I was headhunted into cyber 4 years ago for my commercial and go-to-market skills, for my stakeholder
mm,
management. Now, after 4 years, I feel like I probably understand the industry enough to move into a technical role if I wanted to. And one thing I would also add is don't be scared to take courses or certifications to bridge those knowledge gaps. Not that you have to, by the way. These are trainings that can happen on the job. But if you're able to take LinkedIn courses or even, start to motion towards a particular type of certification that's appropriate for the role you want to get into,
yeah,
right? Then, start that journey. Even if you have it as ongoing or commenced, it will
yeah,
actually show willingness and interest.
that's a great thing. And I think, and please don't try to do every certification. What that tells me, and I talked about in the CV workshop, what that tells me is you do not know where you want to go. You're just very good at learning and passing exam.
Yeah.
That's what that tells me. It doesn't tell me the direction. So we need the clarity. Okay. So next one. Um, do you both have any advice on how to build these networking connections over a course of time in the digital world we live in, with fewer opportunities to meet face to face in a way that will be of value to the person one is trying to network with? Now, this is a very, very interesting question. So,
Yeah, sorry. I suddenly became very passionate because I tell you what, I have never had more opportunities to network face to face than now. And I know I've got well, a colleague and a friend on the call as well. We've been networking together. We go about and actually take on board those opportunities to listen to a panel of people speaking or join a community like Women in Cyber, and actually go to events. So I would challenge you on that. If you're interested in events, let me know. We work very closely with the industry, with the government and industry and academic bodies to make sure that we're helping bolster and grow cybersecurity community. So there are great opportunities to be there face to face. Now, with that said, the other way that you can do it is through social media. So following people that you admire, engaging in content that's been posted either through organizations or through particular contributors, and then starting to actually build a rapport there. So comment a few times, then reach out and say, oh, I've been compelled by this content. I would really love to speak to somebody, or even start to look for hiring managers or even recruitment agents to help guide you through the organization and start to meet people. One of the things that Jit mentioned earlier is that people come up to him quite frequently, right? As you can imagine, as the global deputy CISO for Deloitte, he's not always going to be able to answer everybody's questions, but he may be able to hand you to somebody or introduce you to somebody who does, right? And it could be a senior manager, or it could be somebody who's really interested in outreach, and those connections are just as valuable, right? So remember that.
Interestingly, sometimes I actually think exactly like that. I'm a traffic warden because example,
Yeah.
somebody comes to me, a student came to me saying, Jit, really struggling, needs some help and everything else. And there are some students I have helped in the past 2 years ago. Now they are in the good position. So I say, hey, I helped you. Why don't you help this person? Pay it forward. Everybody I work with, my only ask of them is to pay it forward. And those connections, because sometimes you think, I don't have a network. You have to acquire one connection who has an amazing network and build a very genuine connection with that person. And guess what? You will gain access to that network as part of just by being a genuine connection with that person.
Yeah.
So I think I will give it a saying in digital world, actually, it's easier to make those connections, but it talks about the genuine, authentic effort to build that connection and then asking for that person that, hey, can we have a Teams chat? Can we have a virtual coffee? I think sometimes we are scared of asking. Most people are good, they want to help. The only problem we have is we are time poor. And if you're time poor, you have to prioritize your time. Whether you will get that time or somebody else will get that time will completely depend upon your approach, your authenticity, and that extra mile effort that you go in to kind of genuinely make that. So, example, if somebody really inspires you, Aurora has given you actually a very nice playbook. Start liking their content, start commenting, start interacting with their content so they can start. Because when you do that, they see you. They see you in this big, vast digital world, they see you. And then next, when you're going to go for that one-to-one connection request to say, hey, I've been liking your content and everything else, they know this person. They know this person has been interacting with me for over the last 2 months. That's why I said the networking has to be done when you don't need a job. And that allows those connections to be made. And when they need it, then that helps. Anyways, so I have shared the CV workshop details in the chat. So it's published on Ask the CISO channel, where we're also going to publish this recording. So you got it. Interesting one. Is it true that to move into senior role, example, senior manager role at Deloitte, the external hiring also kind of depends on networking and who knows you? Now, it's a very, very interesting question. So maybe, Aurora, you would like to give a take on it, and then I'll give my take.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, I had sat back and looked at advice for first role seekers, advice for career changers, which I know we spoke about, but also advice for career advancers. And I think this question falls into that career advancement bucket. Interesting enough, I don't want to give the perspective of Deloitte at all, or consultancy, so Jen, I think I'll leave that one with you. But when we start to look at career advancers, it's about targeted networking. So you need to focus on industry-specific events and connect with other senior professionals. So your network changes. Your network moves into thought leadership and contributors, and your network becomes exceptionally important, particularly, I know Jit will probably talk about consultancy. And you need to be shown as a thought leader yourself. So in BT, for example, our senior managers are really the people who carve out the future of our organization. And their ideas are what we depend upon. And their recommendations and their stakeholder management is really what helps them get things done, both inside and outside of the organization. So share your insights, write articles, speak at conferences. And not just within cyber, right? Go and see other areas. Like, life is not just one lane. You need to see.
I don't talk about cyber at all on LinkedIn. I don't talk about cyber at all.
Your platform is fantastic. I've always found it exciting, interesting, and compelling, right? And then the other one is building trust. So I know we've spoken about that one. But as you move up the career ladder, your network is more and more important. So going back to that first comment about my managing director sort of mentor, he was very honest when he sat down with me and said, look, you're not going to go anywhere further until you create a good network. And then it's so true. It's so true.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I want to break a myth here. In this question, there is a myth here. You never get a job just because you know someone, right? You have to prove your credibility, you have to prove your worth, you have to show that you're qualified and you're a deserving person. But having a profile, having access to the network means it opens up more doors for you.
Mhm.
It just opens up more opportunities for you. Because example, at my level, if you think about my job, last few jobs I had, they're not advertised, right? If I think about even Deloitte job, executives retail search firm came to me to say they are looking for, Deloitte is looking for a CISO and everything else. So those, if I was on LinkedIn or some website thinking, oh, I'm going to apply for a CISO role, it's not published. Some lot of as you progress further in your career ladder, senior roles, a lot of roles will not be published.
Mhm.
And what that means is the retained search firm or the HR team is going to look at LinkedIn, understand the profile. That's where the power of profile comes in. That's what how active you are, your thought leadership comes in. And based on that, they're going to decide that this person they're going to put forward to the hiring board to say this could be the potential candidate. And the hiring board is then going to go on to these things to say, okay, do we like this person based on what this person is saying, their profile and everything else? This person is presenting themselves well? We can see them working for organization because not just skills but values. So these things are very important. But as you progress further, the key point here is by having a good network, a strong network and strong presence on these platforms opens up more doors for you. But once the door is open, once you will go inside the door and sit in the interview chair, just knowing somebody is not going to get you the job. That's where your skill, your experience, everything else comes in. Okay. Um, Next one. I am finding it challenging finding my next role after being in cyber for 20 plus years. I'll be looking at applying your suggestions and being active on LinkedIn and virtual events. Okay, so first of all, I'm sorry to hear that you are struggling to find a job even after 20 years. And one thing, and maybe I would recommend you to go and look at my CV workshop because I can't tell you how many times I see again a poorly written CV. This comes back to my laziness because the common lot of people waste a lot of time. We're so lazy. We take one CV and we start applying for all the different types of jobs. We don't really talk about. So I talk about this first half of the CV being the golden real estate, and you have to use it very, very carefully. So I think it's the combination of having a good CV and having a good LinkedIn profile, being a little more proactive, leveraging the network, a network where somebody really understands you. Because if somebody understands you, they can become your active sponsor. There's a bit difference between a mentor and a sponsor. A sponsor really actively advocate for you, open up their network, and actually tell people about you could be the potential good hire. So it's a combination of these things that are going to come and help you.
Yeah. I also would add, if you are able to get formal mentorship, interview preparation, any sort of CV reviewing, do it. Don't hold back.
Yeah.
Particularly for me, I have anxiety in interviews. You think that by the time you get to a senior level that you don't, but you do. And so I always rehearse with a coach before I start to go into any sort of interviewing process. And that helps me clear away all those cobwebs, focus on what really matters, and actually, win in the interview. Likewise, in that CV review, if you can't afford somebody to review it, or if that's not something that you want to do, there are new kind of enhanced CV, or there are platforms that will actually review your CV against the job description and say where you can strengthen your argument. And so don't be afraid to use those tools.
Yeah. And next question is maybe the last one for now, is do we have any platform to connect with mentors? We have an amazing platform called LinkedIn. Amazing platform, right? Because that's where you find people at different levels who are there. I think the point here is it's about connecting with the right mentor. And that right person for you will come from that curiosity where you will take an interest to know the person, understand the person, and then reaching out to them and applying all the learnings we talked about, right? Genuine connection, not for a transaction. Connect with after this, do not connect with Aurora, and the next message is, I want you to be my mentor. So it's a it takes an effort to go and do some of these things. And that's what I will really encourage you to do that. But also, Cyber Ed Board has got a mentoring platform. I know BAE Systems have got a very specific mentoring program for women. And I also know there's a platform called Yes Mentor. Even that is the one I've been discussing with them about, to collaborate with them on some of these things. But most of the mentoring relationships I have, they're actually on the back of the LinkedIn relationship because people really, build connections with me and everything else. And guess what? There's one person here who just reached out to me to saying, I would like you to be my mentor. And you need to have the courage to go and ask. Because guess what? All of us need help. You may think, Aurora and me are senior, we don't need help. Like I have a mentor because at my point, my challenges are very different. And I have got a very senior leader. Whenever I am in doubt, doubt does come. We are all human. So I have somebody to bounce off with and have a conversation with. But it requires that courage to take that leap of faith to go to that person. I really like you as a person. I really like your style. Be very specific why. And when you genuinely like somebody and you ask for help, they are very, very willing to offer their help, help and support. So I think we are running out of time now. So any final thoughts before we bring this to close?
I think I just want to bring it back to the principles of networking, really, is that there are a number of ways to network. Make sure you choose one that allows you to be authentic and comfortable. Don't be afraid of rejection. That's just part of it. You might get silence or you might get that response in 6 months' time. It won't be immediate. And then also just show genuine interest, lean in. Just whatever you find interested in, you will find other people are interested in as well. And if they're not, then that's not your network for the moment. It changes. Then you may come back around again. So actually, as one final piece of advice is always treat any potential networking person with respect, because you never know when they'll come back around. Yeah.
That's a great point. And I think with this, I will just leave with one comment, one thought that don't be lazy. Go extra mile. That's what's going to distinguish you from everybody else. And when I say extra mile in crafting a very nice message, going extra mile in networking when you don't need the job or you don't need a specific outcome. Network with the genuine interest. Spend time on your LinkedIn profile. Make it a representation of you as if you are meeting somebody in the physical world. And engage on these platforms, connect, comment, and everything else. Because it's all about building your profile as well. And always remember, while networking will help you, networking alone is not going to give you the outcome. So concentrating on your skills, your CV, and making sure that that elevator pitch is ready for you, making sure all these things comes together. And when you focus on these aspects together, most likely your probability of success will be much, much higher than others. And with that, I would like to thank you, Aurora, for your time. I know you're very busy as well, so I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much, and I'm sure people who are in the call today and anybody after that will listen will take a lot away from it. So thank you again, and have a nice one, everyone.
Thank you, Jed. Thanks, everyone.